Okay, and now for the week 2 assignments. What I want you guys to do is get a little bit more experience uh, with the skull and then placing the orbits as well. So we're going to kind of go a little bit classical this week, right? And what I want you guys to do is to take a couple beautifully rendered paintings, this one by Repin, and what we're going to do is we're going to get in there, zoom in, and I just want you guys to do a very simple écorché of the skulls of the main figures in this piece. Because it's amazing, we have such a variety of poses and angles and even expressions that it's probably really instructive, I think, to just go through and reasonably quickly get a drop in kind of your egg and different views and try to kind of resolve all the stuff that we know, right? Temporal line, all the construction that we've talked about. And let me just show you in kind of in paint what I'm thinking. Okay, so what I was hoping that we could do with this kind of beautiful painting is that we could get in and just look at the huge variety of faces and inclinations. And the idea is that I want you guys to get in, and not in any super amount of detail, but to get in and écorché kind of the skull and the primary elements that we know, at least what we can accommodate at this resolution. Right, so really start to kind of look at the construction that we talked about yesterday, but applied to faces, right? So this would kind of be a hybrid, right? We're kind of working our way from the surface in. This is going to give us a good kind of reinforcement of how all these landmarks that we talked about on the skull, the construction, appear in life, right? Right, so I'm kind of trying to look for the temporal line here. Got the kind of the vertical here. Temporalis is going to be right in here. You can kind of make it out on this guy. Zygomatic bone. We're going to have to ignore a bit of what we don't know yet, meaning some of these fat pads that are pulled around on the face during expression. So we're going to have to largely just kind of disregard those and build our skulls out from there, right? And on first principles, I don't mind if you drop an ear and whatever. The idea is to capture the angle and the construction of the skull, right? Primarily things like the cranium, right? The angles here, frontal bone. Find the zygomatic horizontal. This particular guy, I'm being a little bit sloppy just because I'm going fast. But some of these angles you might recognize from what you did last week, which should help to inform what you're doing. Kind of make out the bridge of his nose. And remember, the nostrils lie outside of the nasal aperture, obviously, for really important reasons. You can make out the dental arch on this guy, since his teeth are open a little bit. And if you wanted to go crazy, we do know a little bit about masseter and temporalis now, right? So we're not just into skulls anymore, but we can actually start to lock in some of the other forms that we know, right? And that's going to set up these plane transitions, right? So it's just not outlines anymore, but we can actually get in and start to observe some other forms and understand what creates them. Okay, so on and on. You can progress like that with this exercise. The other option is to go in and just do like freehand, right? So if you wanted to just kind of make a nice little blank space on the canvas, do this on another piece of paper if you want, but I'm just going to kind of put this right next to this guy, for example, right? So you can go in and maybe we will go a little bit smaller. Work out the same construction that we were just talking about freehand, right? So what we were tracing, it's probably better if you're able to get in and observe critically and work out some of the things that are going on. And it looks like this guy's pulling an expression, right? So he has his jaw open a little bit. Yeah, I think that's a single tooth popping out of the bottom. So jaw open means we do things with the mandible. Let's get the orbit blocked in. And I can actually get in closer for you. There's not going to be any great masterpiece, mind you, but just showing you what the path forward may be. So something like that, and then just what we were talking about before, kind of make out a little bit of the, just change colors. Masseter temporal line is going to be doing something like this. You can kind of see the convexity of him. You guys are free to put in as much artistry as you have time for on all these exercises. I mean, you can sit here and repaint this if you want, but I want you to pay special attention to the construction, right? Because that's going to be critical for us, right? And I'm going to rub that out because it's about finished for me. And that's it. So let's look at the rest of the assignment. Okay, and if you have time and the inclination, you can also do the same kind of workup on this image by French artist Bouguereau. Beautiful kind of, I think it's the nymphs and the satyr. Again, a lot of really interesting head positions to look at, so just good reinforcement of the same ideas. And then finally, I want you guys to work into a few of the skulls that we looked at last week. Okay, and on the skulls, you can continue over top of the construction that you worked on last week. There's no sense other than for reinforcement to do it again. But what I want you guys to do is to go in and block in the new forms that we know, right? So we've got masseter in here, we've got temporalis, the temporal line. You guys can spend as much time as you want to make this beautiful, but I want you to capture kind of the critical information, right, which is the kind of the crescent of fibers kind of going down, and then the same here, so the muscular body and then the tendinous body. Of course, pay particular attention in getting the origin and insertion correct. If you've seen the gallery abominate, you know that there's some problems that arise if you get it wrong, and certainly you don't want to go in there. Although it is rarefied company with the likes of Andrew Loomis in there already. Okay, so again, the idea with all this is that we're starting to fill in a lot of these cavities of the skull. And now the next thing I want you guys to concentrate on is the orbits, right? So if we have our kind of orbit outlined, I want you guys to block in the eyeball and the tarsal plates, right? So I'm just going to do this all very sketchy, and it can probably be done better by me if with a little bit more time, but I want you guys to get started. And so I'm just going to quickly block in these balls, right? There's a little bit of an art, a little bit of an intuition to getting the eyeballs the right size. And I don't think I've actually done that on the far side. Pretty much I try to look for the angle of gaze first. And the idea is that you bias the eyeball to kind of the upper kind of third of the orbit, right? There's much more space down at the bottom than there is at the top, right? And we'll see next week that a lot of fat billows out from down here. A lot of this stuff isn't going to be visible to us because it goes back inside, for example, here, but it's important to just have it blocked in to get the roundness of the tarsal plates onto the ball. Right? And so from there, if you kind of have your gaze oriented, you want to lay down your lids, right? And so the important thing is, and this may be a little bit of trial and error for you, so you know, this is all a learning exercise, and you get an intuition eventually. Remember the insertion about a centimeter below the suture, the frontozygomatic suture right here, so that's going to be the lateral canthal tendon, and it's on the inside, so we don't see it. The medial is going to be here, just across this, what is the lacrimal fossa. And then we're just going to try to lay down the line of the tarsal plate over top of the eyeball, right? And remember, it's kind of colliding a little bit with the bottom edge, the bottom lip of the cornea. And remember all these little areas in here. Let me just zoom in a little bit to get a bit more resolution. Right in here where the ball leaves the eye, or where the tarsal plate leaves the eye, we had that, that little hole where we had the drainage for our tears, right? And that's where we get this plane change from tarsal plate on the ball of the eye to tarsal plate off the ball of the eye. And canthal tendon going back to insert on the orbit. Okay, so that's the first thing to do, is to actually block in the line on the ball. And I'll just do this other one really quickly. The upper lid can kind of hang out a little bit more on the cornea. So if you get the line of the ball, and then the next stage is to add the thickness, right? And the thickness is really important, and this is the biggest kind of artistic thing, is trying to get this to kind of sit in correctly. And so I'm not just doing tarsal plates, I'm doing the overall thickness of the lids combined, right? Our tarsal plates plus bicularis oculi plus skin, right? And so all this is kind of adding up to make the overall thickness, but I want you to represent the thickness of the tarsal plates in the right amount. Okay, and so eventually that rolls back and creates that upper eyelid crease. And same here, if we have some space. We'll see next week some fat kind of blocks in here and down here. Some pupil. And if we've done it well, you know, it should, well, it kind of looks like a girl, but put lashes on too. You don't need to put lashes on. If you can turn off your your reference. Essentially, all this construction that we're working on is meant to eventually do without the underlying construction of the skull and have the features located and standing on their own, right? And that's going to be kind of why we're putting in all this effort into construction, so that everything is located and fixed in the right place. Okay, so this might be a bit of work, and it's going to be trial and error, I think, for you on the eyeballs for the first little while. But eventually, I think you'll get the hang of it. And certainly, a lot of you are very experienced artists already, so a lot of this will become quite easy and second nature to you, right? Because you're going to render how you already know how to render. So, great. I hope this is kind of fun and a little bit instructive, and I will see you guys again next week.